Globalization, which is the integration of the world, and the pace of technological change is so rapid that unless we constantly relearn, we're going to be left behind. We see growing inequality within societies, and this reflects the fact that people are not able to keep up. This train, if you do not get onto it at the station, races ahead of you. And so it's crucially important to keep learning and to have a learning base, an education base, which allows you to understand the world and be flexible, allows you to develop the skills which will be necessary in a more rapidly changing world. The potential to gain education is rising very rapidly because of technological change, because there's online courses, because in courses you can change it anymore rapidly. You don't have to rely on a textbook which costs hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get your education. But getting a base, and particularly getting an appetite for learning, is more and more important. In the Renaissance, before the printed press, books were only in monasteries. Very few people had information. Very few people had access. And then with the printing press, there was a revolution. Suddenly a desire to learn. And people became literate and were able to advance their skills. And we saw the wonderful explosion of creativity in the sciences and in the arts. We can have that sort of explosion again now with the internet and with the new literacy around the world. In 1990, when the Berlin Wall came down, only half the world could read and write. Now, 25 years later, 80% of the world can read and write, and there are another 2 billion people. This will lead to an explosion of collective and individual creativity and ability, scientific discoveries, the discoveries of new Mozarts and Einsteins and Michelangelos, because more people are educated and connected. Individual talent, but also collective talent. We all become much more effective when we work together. We know from all the management literature, from the psychological literature, from the educational literature, and from scientific discovery, that individuals on their own are more effective when they work in teams, when they bounce off others, when they connect. And so laboratories working on 24-hour cycles can cure cancer by collaborating across the world. And this is happening in many, many areas. So we should expect more change, we should expect creativity, we should expect a virtuous circle in which more and more education and research leads to more and more. But we also need to remember that it's not only skill, it's wisdom that's important. So we need education that prepares us to manage a more complex world. We can be overwhelmed and blinded by the blizzard of data. How do we drink from the fire hydrant of information that's out there? How do we absorb what's relevant? Who are the new gatekeepers for the information that we receive? These are crucial questions. And unless we have the ability to discern, to select, we're not wiser. We might be more informed, but we can be informed by bad things. So it's not a question of doing a simple absorption. One has to really be more and more selective, and given the complexity, one needs to understand more and more how the system works together. So find the right sort of people that will help explain complexity and integration. Globalization has been remarkable in creating opportunity, but it's also spreading risk. And part of the risk that it's spreading is disinformation, bad ideas. There's a struggle of ideas out there. And the bad ideas can be as pernicious and destabilizing as the good. And people can be blinded by information. The financial crisis occurred in a system that has more information and data than any other system in the world. It has better skilled people. And it has people that are joined up. They play golf together once a year at Jackson Hole. So how did they let the system collapse when 20,000 PhDs had the right skills, the right data, the right level of coordination? They didn't have the imagination. They weren't looking forward, they were looking backwards. They didn't understand the complexity that was arising and the new emergent nature of globalization. So the challenge is not only to absorb more, but also to develop a deeper understanding. We need to do it at the individual level, and it needs to be based on values as well. We need to understand that our individual choices more and more affect others. It's because we live in this hyper-connected world and because we're getting wealthier that what we decide to do, what we decide to eat, how we decide to create carbon dioxide and put it in the atmosphere, how we make our choices in our everyday life, whether we take antibiotics or not, affects others too. Climate change, the destruction of the oceans and the atmosphere, antibiotic resistance. These are the unintended consequences of our collective individual choices, which are often the right ones. That's why a tuna got auctioned in Tokyo for over 1.5 million euro. Individuals making the right choice for themselves about what to eat led to collective and will lead to collective extinction. And the same is true with rhinoceros horns and in many other areas. So we need to understand as we get wiser that our individual choices affect others and affect the planet and our future more and more. So we need an education system which is about information, but it's also about a broader understanding, an understanding of where we fit into the world and how we can contribute to it. Globalization, the new technologies provide this opportunity. It's up to us to decide whether we want to seize them.